Hello again, welcome back to Confirmation. This week we're going to continue our discussions in the Old Testament by talking about what are known as the wisdom writings or wisdom literature. The purpose of wisdom literature in the Bible is to teach rather than to relate a narrative. This literature is primarily found in the Old Testament in the books of Job, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Solomon, or sometimes called the Song of Songs, and some of the Psalms. These teaching perspectives are found in other places in the New Testament as well, with the teaching of Jesus and the Epistle of James. Wisdom is really an approach to life, a way of looking at the world, and for the Israelites of the Old Testament, a way of living out in very deliberate, rational ways their commitment to God. When we think about a lot of the great Old Testament stories, it is easy to think that Israel lived in constant crisis. But when we think about the time span of Israel's history, we can see many periods of several generations at a time where there was no crisis. During those times, there was not a great prophetic voice booming proclamations of, "Thus says the Lord." There was just the daily routine of life that preoccupied most of the ordinary people of the land, with the mundane questions of how to get along in life. They were simple questions of living: how to discipline an unruly child, how to teach children what they need to know to survive as an adult, the dangers to the community of gossip and slander, the need for hard work and providing the necessities of life, why wicked people seem to prosper, the arrogance of sudden wealth. The wisdom writings help to answer those questions. Do we face those questions today? Absolutely. There are two main forms of wisdom literature in the Bible. The first type is comprised of short, clever sayings which state rules for personal happiness and welfare or make astute observations about life. The Proverbs are the primary example of this type of wisdom. For example, one of my favorite passages is Proverbs 22:6, which says, "Train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it." The Proverbs will often draw a comparison between two forms of behavior in order to impart moral or religious wisdom to its receiver. I have three passages I'd like you to read now, so pause the video and look up the following. Proverbs 1 verse 7, Proverbs 28 verse 6, and Proverbs 29 verse 7. The biblical notion of wisdom implies acquiring skill or ability in the areas of justice and moral goodness, like a craftsman learning a craft. In fact, Proverbs frequently instructs the listener to get or buy wisdom. Proverbs 4 verse 5 says, "Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or swerve from them." Proverbs is largely concerned with the inevitability of God's justice and the importance of prudence and moderation. The Proverbs maintain that wicked deeds will invariably lead to divine retribution and punishment during a person's earthly life. People who slander others will have their tongues cut off. Those who are lazy will have failing crops. And undue pride will lead to an individual's downfall. One way to enjoy the favorable hand of God's justice is to practice moderation. According to the Proverbs, the moderate person avoids the excesses of the foolish, including excessive drinking, eating, sleeping, gossiping, and rage. A consistent way to demonstrate wise behavior is by choosing words carefully. The Proverbs also praise those who prepare in advance and describe the most important sign of wisdom as being obedient and reverent to one's parents. Got that? The second type of wisdom literature takes the form of essays, monologues, or dialogues that delve into basic problems of human existence, such as the meaning of life and the problem of suffering. Do you know the story of Job? Job is a wealthy man living in a land called Uz, with his large family and extensive flocks. He is blameless and upright, always careful to avoid doing evil. One day, Satan appears before God in heaven. God boasts to Satan about Job's goodness. But Satan argues that Job is only good because God has blessed him abundantly. Satan challenges God that if given permission to punish the man, Job will turn and curse God. Well, God allows Satan to torment Job, to test this bold claim. But he forbids Satan to take Job's life in the process. In the course of one day, Job receives 4 messages, each bearing separate news that his livestock, servants, and 10 children have all died due to marauding invaders or natural catastrophes. Job tears his clothes and shaves his head in mourning, but he still blesses God in his prayers. Satan appears in heaven again, and God grants him another chance to test Job. This time, Job is afflicted with horrible skin sores. His wife encourages him to curse God and to give up and die, but Job refuses, struggling to accept his circumstances. Job has some friends that come over, and they try to tell Job different reasons why he is suffering, always because of something he has done or he has not done. But Job dismisses but begins to question man's relationship to God. He wonders why God judges people by their actions if God can just as easily alter or forgive their behavior. Finally, God interrupts, calling from a whirlwind and demanding Job to be brave. Job acknowledges God's unlimited power and admits the limitations of his human knowledge. God is pleased with Job, and he ultimately returns Job's health, providing him with twice as much property as before, giving him new children and a long life. The dominant theme of Job is the difficulty of understanding why an all-powerful God allows good people to suffer. Job wants to find a way to justify God's actions, but doesn't understand why there are evil people who seem to be rewarded. Pause the video and look up 2 passages, Job 24, verse 21, and Job 38, verse 18. Here God is telling Job, and telling us as well, that humans do not have all the knowledge of God. So it is pointless to try to explain the nature of God and what he allows to happen. God has a plan for all of us. This is the wisdom that comes from the book of Job. The main theme of Ecclesiastes is the meaninglessness of man's effort on earth apart from God. In this book, the author is an old man called the Teacher, who is looking back on his life and examining man's capabilities. He discovers that human wisdom, even that of a godly person, has limits. It cannot find out the larger purposes of God or the ultimate meaning of man's existence. The Teacher sees man in pursuit of one thing and then another, laboring as if he could master the world, lay bare its secrets, change its fundamental structures, break through the bounds of human limitations, and master his own destiny. He sees man vainly pursuing hopes and expectations that in reality are meaningless. Do we see that in our society today? You bet we do. Faith teaches the Teacher that God has ordered all things according to his own purposes, and that man's role is to accept these, including his own limitations, as God's appointments. Let's pause the video and read Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 15. The wisdom here is that man should be patient and enjoy life as God gives it. He should know his own limitations. He should be prudent in everything, living carefully, trusting in God, and keeping his commandments. Pause the video and read Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. The last wisdom book I want to talk about is Song of Solomon. This book is a beautiful poetry that describes how God intends that love be a normal part of marital life in his good creation. These are the wisdom books of the Old Testament. I hope you will keep this in mind. I hope you've learned something from them, and that you would remember these as you go through your Christian life. Have a blessed week. Take care.